I don't know how I'm gonna record this video with this going on. Made some compost tea this week to see how it does. We'll see. These are the leftovers. I'm gonna put these in the compost pile just to kind of activate it up a little bit more. But we can't do the video with this buzzing. So it's getting close to winter. I took the cushions off my outdoor couch and I'm just sitting on wood, so it's not as comfortable. But we're gonna be starting seeds for winter soon. That's right, winter. These seeds that I'm gonna talk about are what we're growing for the winter season, or either need to be sowed in the winter season. And some of them are gonna be put in the greenhouse, and some of them are gonna be put in the garden. And it can be a mixed bag where I live. So I'm in zone 8A in coastal North Carolina, and you can get it either way. So we always want to be prepared, but because we have the greenhouse, we can do a couple different sowings of stuff, and we can either plant it in the greenhouse, start it in the greenhouse, or start it inside in our house in the on the seed shelf. But the first thing that I do need to get in the ground like really soon are going to be my onions. So this year I'm doing 2 different types of onions, and I've never successfully grown onions, so this is like a huge test for me. But we're gonna do, these in my hand are Granix yellow. They're like a Vidalia onion. It's a lot to say. But we're gonna put these in, and they're really sweet. So my favorite way to cook them is on the grill. You just wrap them in tin foil, put a pat of butter in them, cook them, and it's amazing. But we're also gonna get some regular onions to put in, and I have to grow a short day variety here. So I'm on the hunt for a decent variety to put in my garden. I have 2 different types of lettuces here, and these are gonna be ones that I'm gonna put in the greenhouse. I'm gonna start them in the greenhouse more than likely, and then I'm gonna put them in the greenhouse. So we have Paris romaine, just a regular romaine lettuce is one of my favorites. And then I have some leftover Bib lettuce that I'm gonna use, and we're gonna put that in because I have it. It's not my favorite, but it's not my least favorite either. So we can get these in the ground, and as long as I'm harvesting continuously, then we're going to be able to just keep planting them over and over and over again. And we'll put them in the greenhouse at first, and then we'll take them out of the greenhouse. And speaking of which, why don't we start some lettuce seeds before we move on any further?
Shari, come.
You know, considering the way the weather's been and how dry the soil was, I'm actually pretty happy with what's going on inside of the greenhouse right now. And I feel totally rejuvenated about the outlook of winter for 2022-23. You know, it's taken me a couple years to really get on top of what is capable in an unheated greenhouse. And there's so much you can do, even though it doesn't have heat. And you have to remember, I live in zone 8A. So we definitely get down into the teens some, but we don't get prolonged freezes. So this greenhouse really helps with this, and it really helps us to be able to grow food throughout the winter. Now we are gonna have a slow time, but this is hedging our bet against that and anticipating that slow time and being prepared for it. This seed tray is one that just didn't make it over my sickness and into the fall, and everything kind of died. So I've rehydrated the soil real well. And this is one that I made. It's got perlite, peat, moss, and then it's gonna have compost top dressed on top of it. But if you look underneath, you see that there's holes in this, and that's to help this drain, because as the irrigation in here goes for right now, we don't want it to pool up with water. So I have multiple ways that I water my greenhouse. Sometimes I'll water it by hand. Last year I set up this misting system that actually worked pretty good in the greenhouse, just because it's contained and I can shut the door and the winds won't really mess it up, so the water will fall back down. And you'll see those as I walk through my greenhouse throughout the winter as we start doing more and more garden tours. I'll show you what they look like. You'll see these little orange tops spaced throughout, and those are just misters. And I went with misters instead of a soaker hose for 2 reasons. One, because I already had them laying around, so there's that. But two, I like to do a lot of direct sowing, and soaker hoses just don't really cut it for me. I mean, when I do the soaker hose, like if I don't plant right next to the soaker hose, I get really bad germination rates. So this helps against that. But right now, in the heat of this, you know, the heat of the summer, in the heat of the fall, we're still getting into the 90s in here a little bit. So I need to be watering a lot, and I need to be watering heavy, because if you remember, I was worried that my soil was hydrophobic, which I can pleased to announce it's not, and that's because I have my faithful sprinkler in here that just throws a lot of water in a small space. It works really well, and you can see, like as we go down, like it's wet all the way down. And so I minted it pretty heavy, but that's gonna work out well. But the reason why I can do this now is because when I have that sprinkler going, it's gonna already water my seeds in these seed trays, and that's gonna be good. So it's real simple, and it depends on what you wanna grow, but you've gotta be smart about it, and you've gotta understand the way things can take a frost. And so on this little shelf, and I mean, when I say little, I mean a little. Today, I'm basically gonna be planting a lot of lettuce, and there's two reasons why. One, I don't do my lettuce as the cut coming in. I know I hear the people gasping out there. I cut my whole lettuce all at once. It works well for me, and I just keep direct sowing, keep succession sowing. And this is a way I can do that, because even though it's warm in here, it's gonna stay warmer longer, and I haven't even filled up my passive solar heating yet. So I should be able to keep it a couple degrees warmer, and I still have about a month left, so I can get some pretty good size. And if I can, then I'll put it out in the garden. I mean, I have space. Now, I don't expect to grow lettuce all winter in my garden. Actually, I know I can't. I know that right around December to January, like they just start getting beat up real bad. So now if I put a row cover on or something like that, and I may actually end up moving this row cover here, possibly, if I wanted to do that, and then add some more lettuce in, or even back in, boom, the wild garden there, I could add some more in there, and that'll help keep it warm. But even here, you know, I've got some lettuce in here. Once it grows, I'm good to go, and then I can just keep adding lettuce into the spot. So it works out really well. But I want to show you how I sow my seeds in here. So I'm just growing simple romaine lettuce, nothing fancy, but it's our favorite. We have a lot of like butterleaf lettuce out there and stuff, and I don't really like that as much, but it's what I had. But this is gonna get us through, hopefully, as much of the winter as possible. These seeds are a little old, so I just sow kind of heavy, you know? If they were newer, I would sow less, but honestly, I wanna get rid of them anyways, so I'm just gonna sow pretty heavy. If you remember a couple videos ago, I amended my wild garden for the bad soil, and I was just laying the compost and stuff on top of the mulch, and I got it from Wilmington Compost Company, and they hand screen their compost, because that's all they do. So it works out really well because it's nice and fine. And by the way, that shade coming in, I can't wait for it to go down. It's tough. Tall guy like me, it's hard to get in. But this right here is gonna work really well for top dressing. I just put it on here like so, and all I do is just sprinkle a little bit on, and it'll feed it when it comes up, because I didn't add any compost into my soil mix. And then it'll also help keep it moist. And so I may need to grab a little bit more, and I set a little bit aside for this specific reason, because I knew that the screen compost would work a lot better. So I know I talked about this one in the fall, but it's also something I plant in the winter. They're very hardy. I almost dropped the seeds. That would be disastrous if I spilled the seeds. They're very hardy, and you can eat the greens or the roots, and that's gonna be turnips. So these are one of my favorite winter vegetables to grow. We are gonna put them in the greenhouse, and then we're also gonna put them out in the regular garden. And I'll start these in my greenhouse actually about a month before I plant them out, just to kind of get them a head start, because the way the greenhouse works is it's already getting cool at night in there, so it'll naturally be ready to put out into the garden. So this is going to be a really good addition, and it also helps to loosen up that soil a little bit. So when I go to amend it, I'm going to put it in, I'll be able to get all the amending stuff in. So I'm going to add more topsoil to my garden this year too. And so I'm going to use that one specifically in the wild garden. Another one I have here is I still have a couple more beet seeds. So I want to keep using beet seeds and keep planting them. I've gotten a couple harvests of beets and it can be difficult for me, but I think it's just my timing. I mean, the back of the seed here says October to February. So there you go. When I say tested it, I mean, we put a stress test on it. So past 2 nights it got down, the first night it got down to about 36. And last night we barely touched 32. Haven't seen any real dieback yet. Now we're gonna come out here and add some more carrots into this bed here, and then the wild garden bed, which is actually getting more sun right now. So we're gonna keep adding carrots into those, and those other carrots are gonna drill farther down, and that's gonna help me when I go to amend the soil, because I had the compaction issue. So that'll help break it up and let the nutrients kind of go down into it. So we're gonna continue doing that, because if we're gonna get 10 days of warmer weather, I don't envision that it's gonna all of a sudden drop off, but it could. I mean, you know, it was 60 degrees at night 3 nights ago. So that being said, it's kind of taking a risk, but we can also set up our low tunnel over there, and we're gonna do that when the time's right. I don't need to set a low tunnel up right now because it's gonna be too hot. I mean, I just won't even be using it. So for right now, there's no reason in setting it up. But if we need to, we can protect that bed while those seedlings get established and start to grow. And then that'll kind of speed it along. And the low tunnel is a really easy, low cost option. So we'll try that if we have to. My goal is to never have to set it up though, just because I don't like it. Last year I set it up and I just didn't use it as much as I thought I would. We didn't have a very cold winter, but it was good to have it in place. Even if you don't have a greenhouse though, the low tunnel can be a good option if you're growing the right crops. So just remember, if you're wanting to grow through most of the seasons, if you're in an area where the ground doesn't freeze completely, and even if it does, the low tunnel is gonna be a good option, because you can get stuff in the ground earlier and things will actually grow a little bit faster because it warms up during the day, and then you have that soil temperature coming up. So it's a good option to have.